Hi collectors, it's Carly and welcome to this edition of What I Found at Fanboys. In these videos, I'll be showing you guys the coolest new thing that I found at Fanboys Marketplace and telling you all about why I had to have it for my collection. This edition is very special to me because 2022 marks the 30th anniversary of Image Comics, the #3 publisher in the world right now, and by far and away the publisher of some of my most favorite comic books of all time. So this week when I was shopping at Fanboys and I came across these incredible original Youngblood action figure and comic book combos from the 90s, I knew I had to have them, and I'm going to tell you all about why, and then we'll take a close look at one of the figures. What makes Image Comics so special is that all of the comics at the publisher are creator owned. So you're getting to see the complete vision of the creators from start to finish, which brings a lot of really unique art styles. We'll be talking about that a lot today with Youngblood, and unique writing styles, presentation that sort of doesn't conform to the norm or the standards of the industry to date. So I highly recommend you check out Image Comics, and Youngblood is actually their flagship title. So Youngblood was written and created by Rob Liefeld, who was one of the founding members of Image Comics, a really interesting and controversial character in the comic book world. First and foremost, something that you hardly ever hear when it comes to someone who's working in mainstream comics is that Rob was completely self-taught. So he got his start over at DC as a penciler for Hawk and Dove in 1988, and then in 1989 he moved over to Marvel, where he's responsible for the creation of Cable and Deadpool, two enormously popular characters today. So after he had been with Marvel for some time as the writer and penciler, ultimately developing the X-Force, Rob met up with a competitor called Malibu Comics to discuss some of the ideas that he had, which later became a comic book called The Berserkers. We see some of the Berserkers here in Youngblood as well. So that really was kind of a fast and loose move with the ethics of being contracted by one of the big two and reaching out to another company. And that ultimately, I think, is what sort of led Rob to move away and establish his own publishing house. And as I said, Youngblood was the first title that was released by Image Comics, and the first issue of Youngblood sold over 1 million copies. So they've done this incredible thing. They've established this amazing publishing house. We know that titles like Spawn came out of this. We know a number of studios like Top Cow, Skybound, all developed out of Image. We know we've got Robert Kirkman, who has incredible stories to tell about how Rob Liefeld really helped him sort of navigate his way through independent comic book creating to become the absolute legend that he is today. I will share a link in the description of just an awesome short interview with Robert talking about his first experience with Rob Liefeld, and it really just gives you an idea of the kind of quirky, fun, imaginative, and creative character that Rob was all around. But being this type of creator doesn't come without some hiccups in the road, some bumps, some criticisms, and some difficult things when it came to actually managing the business. And what makes Youngblood such an incredible title is that a lot of the characters in these comic books are dealing with issues that I think really mirror the issues that these founding members of Image Publishing were dealing with themselves. So, of course, we've seen in Marvel and DC comics and all kinds of other superhero comics, characters who are flawed, who are facing day-to-day challenges and managing their alter egos alongside being a hero. What Rob does that's a little bit different in Youngblood is dealing with characters really at the core of their humanity. So it's not just about dealing with agents and celebrity and getting options and management, although he does deal with that. And there are characters like Timer and Rob Steinman who are a PR representative and an agent for the group. So some of the less sexy action moments are actually of them fielding questions from the media, their PR agent stepping in and correcting them or issuing a statement, and sort of just dealing with how they can do their job and still maintain the right public appearance. They are a government organization after all. They're run by the government, and there are several teams and all kinds of outliers in the group. So for Youngblood, it's really important to have somebody to manage those issues. And it's not really the most exciting moments of the comic, but it had never been done like that. And I don't think that it's ever really been done like that again. They were really touching on these, you know, sort of foundational moments of what it means to be in the limelight in that way. So some characters, like one that we'll look at in the figures, Badrock, who is actually a 17-year-old boy, his name is Thomas McCall, he deals with it really well. He just goes with the flow. He deals with whatever comes his way. He wants to try everything. He does movies, he does options, he does restaurants, he does clothing deals, and he's sort of okay with it. But the leader of the group, Shaft, who doesn't have any special abilities in the way that Badrock does. So Badrock drank a potion that his scientist father made to get his rock form. And we'll talk about how this form is a little bit derivative in just a second. But Shaft, whose name is Terrell, he actually was a member of the CIA, the FBI, Special Forces, all kinds of secret organizations. So he's just a trained machine. And in that sense, a regular type guy. And he ends up being plagued with nightmares as they become more and more famous about getting really fat, gaining a ton of weight, not fitting into his costume anymore. And it sort of leads to him having a really unhealthy relationship with food and exercise. So he'll have these horrible nightmares about blowing up and everybody making fun of him and not taking him seriously as a role model anymore. And then he has to go run on his treadmill for however many hours he feels like it will take to, you know, make up for what he was thinking about in his dream. It's really interesting, and there is a lot of debate about whether it worked or not. But what matters is that Rob had the freedom to do the story the way that he wanted to, and he absolutely did that all the way. So one of the criticisms on the head of the creators of Youngblood was the way that the story was told used sort of a flip page style, and the panels weren't laid out in a way that comic book readers were used to seeing. So a lot of people found the comic books just straight up difficult to read. Now, fans responded really well. They were excited to see Rob working in this way, and like I said, the first issue sold 1 million copies, but critics were saying the storylines were incomplete, they were confusing, it was unreadable, lines were a little bit crazy, they didn't like the style. He really sort of pioneered this very exaggerated anatomy style with huge muscles and giant breasts and very long torsos that now I think is a hallmark kind of the 90s, but at the time a lot of critics just didn't like it. They weren't really saying a lot of nice things about Youngblood, but the fans kept coming back, and there were a lot of incredible crossovers with this comic book. There was Youngblood, Team Youngblood, Youngblood Bloodstrike. They were in Spawn comics. It was just a really pioneering time. Now, Rob ended up having a fallout with some of the co-creators and some of his partners over Image, and ended up leaving Image and ultimately lost the rights to Youngblood, which admittedly was getting a little bit convoluted. Again, I mentioned some derivative characters, which happens in every comic, especially from DC to Marvel, but with characters like BJ Troll and Badrock, who is very Thing-like. It just seemed that after Rob left, there wasn't a lot of innovation taking place with the comic, and ultimately it ended. There was a revival, very short-lived, but that didn't really go anywhere. Rob had not secured the rights from his partner writing that and was able to release 2 issues, but was not able to complete the story because he didn't secure the rights properly. You shouldn't do it ever. But eventually, when you're dealing with lots of dollars and cents, people are just not going to want to work with you. Rob is still, however, a very prolific creator. We've seen all kinds of work from him. He continues to create comic book stories. No one can deny the popularity of his major character, Deadpool, one of the biggest characters around right now, so popular. X-Force is huge. And he even did a variant cover for the Last Ronin Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic recently. And while people may have criticized or questioned the style of his work, his approach was pioneering. He was a trailblazer. He went his own way and he created something really incredible. And that is really why I had to have these Youngblood comics. So sets like these with a comic book and a figure. Now this is not an articulate action figure, it's a bendy figure, which is also something that is really a hallmark of the 90s, but you cannot get things like this anymore. Nowadays, we just don't see this kind of innovation, and with the supply chain sort of lagging, you really can't find anything like this unless you're going to a convention or someplace like Fanboys. So these signify a bygone era to me. Image is by far and away my most read publisher in my comic book collection, which is pretty extensive. If you have any questions or want recommendations for Image comics, say so in the comments below and I will create a list because I think it's highly worthwhile to check them out. They just did something that wasn't done before. So I decided, these are actually my two favorite characters, Badrock and Shaft, the main character, and Thomas, who is the 17-year-old. He's the most popular member of the team. He gets into the most shenanigans, and Shaft is just like your typical sort of alpha hero. He's just a really good guy who wants to do the right thing and faces the challenges that the leader of a team does, kind of like Captain America, but he's cool. He uses a specially crafted bow and arrow, he knows martial arts, he knows all types of weapons, and Badrock is just a huge rock dude who's mega strong, but he's also really good at like tactical stuff, and he's a better member of a team than you would think a 17-year-old boy would be. So these are the two that I am keeping in the package, but I decided to open one just to show you guys a little bit closer what we get in these. So this is Riptide, and this is her out of the package. As I said, they're bendy figures. So they're sort of rubbery. They still bend really well, which I think is pretty amazing because this has probably been in that package since about 1994, if I had to guess. And then the comic is just a little 8-page one-shot. I'm not sure if all three of the comics are the same. I would bet that they are. Everybody is sort of featured in here. What is kind of a bummer is that Eric Stevenson sat in on this issue, so this isn't actually a Liefeld. He didn't do the cover or any of the interior art, so this is unfortunately not a perfect Liefeld the way that I would hope it would be. It's not really like having a Liefeld original, but it's still, as you can see, super beautiful. Little just one shot. Really, it's just like a fight that they're in, and it's really pretty dope. So I hope you guys enjoyed hearing a little bit about Image, learning a little bit about Youngblood. If you are Youngblood fans, tell me what you think about these collector's items as a piece of nostalgia, not necessarily something super valuable. There are 3 other figures in the line. If you guys think I should get those, let us know in the comments. If you have Youngblood collectibles, let us know what your favorite pieces are. I'll include my email in the description bar, and you can email me any pictures, and if they're really cool, we'll share them on our Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will be making videos twice a week showing you what I pick up at Fanboys, talking about just topics in collecting, comic books, toys especially. I review toys, so I'll be sharing some of that. And any content that you guys would be interested to see here, please let us know in the comments or email us, and we will do our very best to create it for you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing my collection with me. We love having you, and we can't wait to find out more about what you're into because we know that everybody collects something. Have a great day, guys. Bye.